Hello, I finally got around to making this video for you. I hope it's useful. I'm just going to try to show you the basics of how to get the shape down. I have your reference pulled up now, but ultimately, I don't know how fine you want the details, so I will just try to go through some of the basics for you. Um, so up here, when you start Blender, you'll want to go to New and Sculpting, and you'll be greeted with this nice little sphere. If you want to change it to red to better match your horn, you can go to this little drop down menu. I like to use matte cap single, and you click the color, drag this down to red, and then you have this nice red. I also like to have this turned on to mirror on the x-axis, and you'll see another dot on the side. That's where, say, if I draw on this side, another will appear directly on that side. So what we'll want to do is turn up the radius to about 135. That should be good. Make sure that we are drawing on the plane right away. And then we can use either the inflate or the pull. So what you can do is kind of pull that, and then you can use the inflate to kind of build up on that. Now, this isn't going to have, since you're pulling effectively the triangles, it's not going to be super accurate. So what you want to do is once you get an OK start, we can pull this one down to kind of match that. And we'll fix the tip of that later to curve it around to the other side. But we'll make the little base to put onto the head. And then we will want to kind of pull this apart. So you have a nice base on the skull. And what we can do is go over to here, smooth. And then you can make the radius just a little smaller and then smooth out the bottom. Now what I do recommend is going on MeshMixer. I can show you this after I'm done with this, but to go on MeshMixer and just cut it flat with a plane cut. Again, I will show you how to do that in a bit. To get finer detail, you go to inflate. This kind of pulls it out more slightly, depending on how thick you want the base of the horn to be. And then you can use flatten to kind of make everything more uniform. And then after you worked around with it a little bit, I recommend doing a remesh. So what you do for that is you go to this little button remesh, your voxel size with this sample size selector, you click that and say right about there, and this number will change. So that's basically the next uniform triangle size. So you just hit remesh. It might take a while depending on your system. And now you have a much more detailed horn, and these lines aren't stretched out anymore. And then what you can do is go back to inflate, kind of adjust the size a little bit, make this a little rounder. I think we can go back to grab and pull that back, yep. And then this button for draw, this is a little sharper. So radius is fine. You'll want to go to the negative because this will subtract away from the model. This is a lot more powerful, so you don't need to do a whole lot to do a lot. Otherwise, I would recommend the inflate if you kind of want to do just smooth, what do you call them? Well, inflations, rather than draw, where you can go onto here and do a lot more editing with that. So you kind of just want to push these in. You can also use a flatten tool to kind of get this more uniform size. You can also turn up the strength if you need to. And smooth, basically same as flatten, but it's kind of like blurring the edges. And you just kind of have to go back and forth and keep on building on it. Go to inflate, add a little more, go to smooth, and smooth that all over. So you can just kind of smooth the top a little bit. And I'm just kind of quickly clicking. With each stroke, I do a click. So it starts from here and then it smooths out on the rest of my stroke. And what we can do for this is smooth that out, make that a little smaller, make that a little sharper. Maybe you can pull it out a little bit like that. Smooth that out. And depending on how sharp you want it, you can change that. Otherwise, you know, the basic horn shape is there. And again, it's a lot of back and forth. And if you have a tablet, Blender does have pressure sensitivity. So you can use that to an advantage if you really want it smooth. Also, another thing to check is the width. Just make sure that it's uniform and maybe a nice taper. Nice taper to the end. So once you get the basic, again, just go smooth, and then it'll blend those corners together. And whatever you do, say if you want to work on this side, because it's a little easier to see the curve, you can, and it will go to the other side. And smooth that out. And say if you see something on that end, maybe a little bump, smooth it out on this end, and it'll smooth it out on that end as well. And then again, if you want to play with shading, there's this if you really want to make it smooth. Or there's this if you want to see like how different lights and affect the, you can see a little bit more of this. Once you print it, get a good idea of how it will look. All the shading and the lighting. And then depending on how much work you do, you might want to remesh it. I would recommend remeshing it once you've completed it, so that everything's nice and uniform when you go to print it. And I see in your reference that you have a little, oh, here's a triangle view if you want to see that, play around with it. But see how all of these squares are mostly uniform? That's how you want it. You don't want anything too elongated, otherwise it will really get, it'll not look good once you print it. So I see that you have a little ridge on your reference. So what we can do is first I will save this. Just in case, and then we can go to the draw, go to the minus because we want to subtract, and I'll select a little bit smaller radius. What we can do is create that nice little ridge. And then Control Z if you mess up. You can also turn down the strength if you don't want it too strong. This also kind of helps. And then you can go to smooth and just smooth that part out. Again, if you worked with SAI, it's kind of like the blur tool, to where the shading is nice and blurry and smooth. And then if you really want it, all right, there's the basic ridge. If you want it sharper, I mean, I think you can use the draw tool with a lower strength to kind of make this more pronounced. If you also wanted to drag it, turn up the strength a little bit, drag it over here. Again, you can make this a little more pronounced if you want. And then if you wanted to do like grow marks, well, you can flatten that out to make it all uniform. Make the strength a little less. Make the strength a lot less. Smooth. Sorry about the background noise, if you can even hear that. Alright, and then if you wanted to add, say, some growth marks, what we can do is go to this draw sharp, shrink down the radius, and you can level the strength of how you want, and just draw across, like that. Make sure you stop in the middle though. And again, if you don't want it to go down too far, you can adjust the strength. and just make it like that. Maybe do a couple passes. Like that. And that's basically it. And then I will cut over and show you the trick that I use in MeshMixer. MeshMixer is also free. So I will shoot you a link to that if you don't already have it, and get to that part of the tutorial. Okay, so now we have MeshMixer loaded up. What we will want to do is go to Import, wherever you saved it. In my case, it's Document, Horn Attempt 2. And now you'll see the STL that we've imported from Blender. What you'll want to do is go to Edit, Transform, make sure that is the correct size. If not, it's weird as in the blue arrow is Z. You can double check that and translate Z. So if you want this to say be, it's also in millimeters. So about 8 inches is 200 millimeters. So let's just make it 200 millimeters. And then you'll want to hit accept, and then you'll be able to zoom out a lot faster. And from that point to that point is 200 millimeters. And then also in transform, you can rotate it however you want to. But this will just be okay for now for what we put it on the head base. Still in edit, you want to go to plane cut, and you have this plane that you can drag down. You want to do cut, discard half, and make sure you have remeshed fill selected, and hit accept. Oh, that wasn't what I wanted to do. Make sure this arrow is pointing down. This will be what you cut off. So if this is okay, you can also rotate the plane however you want it. So let's just say that's good for now. Hit OK. And then now you have a nice smooth bottom to attach it to your head base. This is what I use for making sure that that's nice and flush on the printer. It's worked well. If you need to edit the number of triangles or vertices, I think it's Control A, and you go to Edit, Remesh, and then you can change this to make it a little more efficient if your computer isn't too powerful. You can change, the density of the triangles if one part is more flat than the other. It'll use less triangles there if possible. Or you can go to reduce. And it'll think a little bit. And then either max deviation, triangle budget. If you want to edit it in Fusion 360, it has a triangle budget of 10,000. So you will need to use this before you use the convert to BREP. That's a whole nother section. I can go over that if you want, but for now, we'll just leave everything right now. So we can hit cancel, and you can go to File, Export, save it as an STL, and load it up in Cura or S3D or Prusa Slicer, and you'll be ready to go. Like I said, you know my Telegram. If you have any questions, do let me know if you need anything, and I can either try to make another video or hit you up or reply to you on Telegram or email, whatever is fine for you. So, yep, just let me know if you need anything else, and I'll talk to you later. Thanks.